Well, greetings everyone. We're here to celebrate St. Valentine's Day, otherwise known as the Festival of Lovers. Now, in the Catholic Church, they actually recognize three different saints as St. Valentine, so it's kind of hard to know where we stand.
Three people or one person and three different facets?
Well, that could be too. We'll explore it. Now, the first one was the Emperor Claudius II in 270 AD reckoned that soldiers in the Roman army performed much better when they weren't married. So he actually forbade marriage for young men.
Killjoy.
Yeah, well, I know. So then what happened was this Saint Valentine came in and undercover married all kinds of men. Well, he got caught, and Emperor Claudius. So that's the first Saint Valentine's.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't think he was a saint then. He wouldn't have been a saint until somebody had told him he was a saint, but after he was dead. So, but anyway, I think this is the same guy because it's still under Claudius II. Valentine helped Christians, and because he helped Christians to escape from Claudius, he got into trouble with the emperor. So he was put into jail, and obviously Claudius didn't like him much.
Yeah.
But while he was in jail, he fell in love with the jailer's daughter. Sounds a bit like Toad Hall, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, with the worker woman. Yeah, carry on. Go ahead.
Anyway, he was sentenced to death, and he was going to die, and there was nothing anybody could do about it. So on the eve before he died, he wrote a letter to this woman that he loved. So the letter that he wrote became the template that we use today to send cards to our loved ones on Valentine's Day.
And the third one happens to be the assertion that the Catholic Church actually substituted the festival of St. Valentine's for a pagan one that was called Lupercalia. You're saying a Lupercalia, you say. Lupercalia fragilis. Anyway, so it was digging deep here. So it was actually a pagan festival that the Romans did that the Catholic Church decided was not kosher.
Well, they didn't like the idea of multiple gods, so they wanted to keep things but change things.
Now, I don't think that means that we should, draw a line under St. Valentine's Day. I think it's a lovely little thing to where I take a day and, pay special attention to my wife and things. Oh, it's charming and to be taken that way. In the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the behavior of their wives, as they observe your chaste and respectful behavior. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God.
This is a scripture which has become a little bit tired over time because a lot of women have found that it has been used to beat them up into submission to their husbands. In actual fact, that's not what it's saying at all. It's saying something completely different, and it's actually highlighting a quality in a woman which is quite exceptional. We have started this by calling it a tale of two husbands, because we want to put over the perspective that a woman is made or enhances depending on the kind of man she marries. The one that I'm going to talk about right now is Abigail, who was married to Nabal. Now, it's very easy to know, everybody knows that Nabal was pretty rotten husband, but I don't want to focus on Nabal because everybody knows what kind of a man he was. But I would like to focus in on Abigail. Abigail knew that she was married to a man who was difficult, but she had been taught by her mother and her grandmother probably how to behave and how to conduct herself. And in those days, marriage was not something that we could choose for ourselves. It was something that was foisted on them. It was usually some kind of either a political agreement or financial agreement. So she would not have had any choice in the man that she was married to. But what did she do with the situation she found herself in? Well, the story goes that David and his men, who then later on became King David, was up in the hills, and his guys were looking after the shepherds up in the hills who were looking after the sheep, obviously. And when it was time for the sheep to come down, David sent his men to Nabal and asked for some form of a recognition, a payment, for the fact that he had protected them. Now, Nabal didn't go along with this, and so David got a little bit angry about it and was intent on doing some damage. Nabal's servants heard about it, and instead of going to him, they went to his wife, Abigail. Why? I think they felt safe with her. Why did they feel safe with her? Because she was kind, she was generous, she was considerate. Otherwise, they would never have gone to her first, because normally it is the man who makes the decisions. But obviously these servants didn't feel comfortable with the decision that they would have expected from her husband, so they went to the wife. Now, she looked at the situation and she decided what she was going to do quickly. She didn't hesitate. She got together supplies, put them on a donkey, took a servant, and went up into the hills to meet head on this very real threat, which could have ended in her death. So she's kind, she's considerate, but she's also very brave, because she was putting in front of her the lives of the people who weren't her servants per se. They were actually her husband's servants, but they mattered to her. And I think it's important to know that whether people belong to you or whether they're just colleagues, how you care about them is really, really important. You've got to consider that your neighbor is your brother or your sister. And when you do that, you are going to be willing to fight for them. And this is what she was willing to do. So she took her donkey and her supplies and one servant only and went up into the hills. And she put herself in front of even the donkey and the servant and faced David and said, Lord, please forgive my shortcoming. She didn't even put it on her husband. She accepted the blame herself. This puts me in mind of somebody else who did something similar later on with Daniel, when he said, my sin, when it was time for the breaking of the curse of Babylon. She put herself into a place which was not rightly hers, but in order to save people. We can see this also with what Jesus did. He put himself in front of people, and he hung on the cross for people, not because he deserved it, but because it was the right thing to do. So when you find yourself in I don't think this is a terribly fair situation, yeah, that's probably true. But it doesn't mean to say that God doesn't see everything, because he does. And in the case of Abigail, when she then went back down and eventually told her husband what she had done, God had already written the story, and she was provided for, although at the time she didn't know it. And she had to just put on her brave shirt and go down there and take whatever consequences were coming to her. But the great thing is that when we have faith in God, we know that he has our backs covered, and he did with her. So when her husband died because of an apoplectic fit, because of what she'd done to save him and his servants, God had already made provision for her in the future. So that's the story that I've got to share with you right now.
I've always been challenged by the book of Hosea, because here we have a man of God who is told by God to marry an unfaithful woman and to have children by her. Okay, and Judy's going to read the outcome of that from Hosea 2, verses 14 to 17.
Therefore, behold, I will allure her, bring her into the wilderness, and speak kindly to her. Then I will give her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of hope. And she will sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up from the land of Egypt. It will come about in that day, declares the Lord, that you will call me Ishi, and will no longer call me Barley.
Lovely. Thank you, Judy. So the idea that I want to get across to us is this man of God, Hosea, is told to marry a woman who is a prostitute, essentially. She's unfaithful, she's flighty, but he's supposed to be devoted to her. Now, let's take the type of Christ in this, because faithfulness is something that is very, very difficult to handle when it's not there. If my wife were to be unfaithful to me, that would be a terrible blow. If I was unfaithful to her, that would be a terrible blow. Trust would be obliterated. It would be very, very difficult to have any kind of respect. Faithfulness is kind of the bedrock of a marriage relationship. Now, let's change it around and look at it as us being the bride of Christ. Now, when Christ died on the cross, we were not faithful. His very own creation were the ones that were throwing insults at him and spitting at him and throwing dust up and doing all kinds of things and insulting him. His own creation that he made out of love. But he hung on that cross for us because he could see beyond that. He could see that we were his bride, and once we were filled with his Holy Spirit, the faithfulness would happen. So this man Hosea, first of all, we can see that his wife's unfaithfulness doesn't make him harsh with her. As a matter of fact, it says that he's tender with her, he's loving, he's compassionate with her. In another place it says, you will no longer call me Baali. Now you'll call me Ishi. Now Ishi is kind of an affectionate term for Lord, but Baali is like a harsh master. It's a tough word. It's a word that means you're to be obeyed, and there's no flexibility in it. It's a harsh thing. He says, no, you're not going to call me that anymore. You're going to call me Lord. You're going to call me. It's almost like father, somewhat. Okay. Now, then he says, I betroth you forever. And that's what Christ does for us. He betroths us forever, no matter what. Now, this is in stark contrast to the spirit of the day that we live in, because in this day and age, we discard relationships very, very quickly. If someone doesn't please us right away, off you go. If someone doesn't give us what we want right away, off we go. The strength of relationships is actually eroding. And this is something we need to take on board with Christ's love, that he never gave up on us. I'll never forget a situation once in Africa where there was considerable pressure on me from a certain person. And my pastor said to me, Larry, never give up on that person. Never give up on any person. If you can't be in the same room as them, pray for them. Just never give up. And I think Christ shows us this never give up idea. This is the problem also in relationships with marriages, where divorces happen far too easily. Now, if there's any of you that are divorced that are listening to this, please understand, I am not putting any trips on that. I realize that sometimes a relationship has to separate. I know that for all kinds of reasons, but that's not what I'm aiming at. What I'm aiming at is how Christ takes relationships and never gives up on us. He will move mountains, anything, just to get us to come to life in him. And with this story of Hosea and the story that Judy read with Abigail, now she was never disrespectful to Nabal. I would have thought that it would have been easy to be disrespectful to the man, because not only her, but her servants say, well, he's such a worthless man, he won't listen to anyone. Now, how does that make you feel when someone will not listen to you? It's pretty hard to put up with that. But Abigail, like Hosea, have this unconditional love idea. They're not affected by what comes from the other person. They're more concerned with how they can bless the person in spite of it. And that's what Christ does for us. How can I bless them in spite of them? And how much does Christ still put up with each one of us when we struggle to get things right? But he's always there, and he's always loving. Well, now that we've had a little bit of time to tie in a wife's idea of looking at another good wife and a husband's idea of looking at another good husband that provide good examples, in this St. Valentine's Day, we thought it would be good to tie it all up. Now, our first book, If You Love Me, Show Me, it's not a plug, by the way, the last chapter was actually called Courtship Never Ends. So we actually believe that courtship never ends. And the courtship never ending is not the big one day of the year type idea or a huge event. No. It's something where day by day, I'm doing this for her or that for her or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's the little things. So with that, I'm going to read you guys a story about how little things happen to be big things. Mm-hmm. Now, across Niagara Falls,
which is true, by the way, the story.
Which is huge if you've ever been there. I have had the honor of being there once. It's massive. It's incredible. But anyway, so what they had to do is they had to string a cable across the gorge. That's a long way across, and it's
about 800 meters or so.
Something like that. It's huge. Yeah. So they didn't know how to do this, but they found a solution. I'll read you what the solution is. In 1848, when engineers were planning to build a suspension bridge across Niagara Gorge, the question became, how do you stretch the first wire across an 800-foot gorge with 220-foot cliffs on either side and rapids that rush towards a waterfall? Seems big to me. A kite flying contest, of course. Why didn't we think of that? Judith Elleran. We should have thought of that. Anyway, so a kite flying contest. Now, a 15-year-old American named Homan Walsh won. The day following that successful flight, a stronger line was attached to the kite and pulled across. Then, an even stronger line. Then a rope. After that, a cable consisting of 36 strands of 10-gauge wire. And it all started with one kite string. So that was the way that they started their suspension bridge across the Niagara Falls Gorge, of which I've seen. It's magnificent. And Judy, with that idea of small beginnings and everyday things, is going to read for us from Zechariah chapter 4, verses 8 to 10. All yours.
Also the word of the Lord came to me, saying, the hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house, and his hands will finish it. Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you. For who has despised the day of small beginnings? But these 7 will be glad when they see the plumb line in the hands of Zerubbabel. These are the eyes of the Lord, which range to and fro throughout the earth.
Okay, now to continue this, I want to ask Judy a question. My love, what are some of the ways that you continue to do courtship with me?
Well, I would like to actually turn that around and show what you do courtship for me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I hope that's good.
Do you know that every single day, every day mind, I get a cup of coffee first thing in the morning. Before I'm even finding my glasses to wake up and see what's what in the world.
If you don't have your coffee, you're not going to find anything. You're going to carry on. It's just the way it is.
But he prepares for that the night before. And every single day for 35 years, he has gone into the kitchen, cleaned up all the last bits and bobs because I always leave something unfinished, because I always do.
Hadn't noticed.
Liar. Anyway, he tidies away all the last things that I always leave to be the first thing to do the next day. And he prepares the coffee that he is going to pour the next morning, the night before. And he has always done this. So his little things bless me mightily, because not only that they deprive me of my first job in the morning to have to do, because he's done it the night before, but he has prepared the night before the coffee that he always gives to me the following day without fail. That is one of the ways that Larry blesses me with ongoing courtship. It's a tiny little thing, but it means so much.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate that as much as you do. I just think that it's just a good thing, because it's time for you and I in the morning, and I don't like to be rushed too much, so I like to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes with Judy and just have a cup of coffee and talk and have some scripture and pray together. To me, that just starts the day off on the right foot. Now, some things that Judy does for me. She does so many things, it's crazy. And like, for instance, one of the things, she takes care of the finances. I mean, listen, before I met her, I am not unreasonable with finances. I'm not stupid with it. Before I met her, I had no debts. I had nothing at all, but I had no debts. So the thing is I was very scrupulous with my finances, but I didn't act with wisdom. I just sort of paid what needed to be paid and owe no man anything and things like that. But what she does is she takes the finances and make them stretch. She invests and makes them do things so that the finances just work really, really well. And me, I just can't be bothered.
Yeah, well, it's like I said in a previous testimony that I did just recently. I planned for 30 years and he plans for 30 days.
Well, with regards to finances, that would be a true statement. Other things I plan far more in advance, but money is,
it's just not something that interests you.
I just don't care. That's just what it is. Now, another thing that she does is she takes such care in cooking. Now, you have to understand the backdrop of this before we go any further. When I first met Judy, her repertoire was probably about 2 plates.
Well, you've got to understand, I grew up in Africa where there was always somebody who picked up after me and I never had to pick up anything.
Yeah.
When I first went over to Europe, I didn't even know how to make a bed.
No.
I didn't know what it meant to sweep a floor.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't know how to put polish down. I knew nothing. So I had to start from scratch.
Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because little by little, now I was kind of the cook. You know, coming from a French-speaking environment and everything, it was me that was the cook. But little by little, boy, she's far beyond me now. She just keeps improving and improving and improving. And now I do very little in the kitchen because she just does it so well. And I love...
No, that's not true. I might make the mess and make it yummy, but you usually clean it up.
Well, you gotta do something. So I think that the main idea that I'm trying to get across here is I am courting my wife in ways that enhance her life, hopefully, and she does the same thing for me. My role as a husband, I see it this way, that Judy has aspirations that are every bit as important as my aspirations in life. She wants to accomplish certain things. She wants to feel like her life has been worth something, and my job is to make it happen if I can, and certainly not to impede her in the aspirations that she wishes to accomplish, but rather to open doors for her, rather to make it so that it becomes a reality. I'll give you an example. When she was a young girl, she always wanted to play music and never could. So myself, I'm a music teacher. I bought her an oboe and bought myself an oboe, and we learned oboe together. We do things together.
I want to also point out,
I'm not a model husband, by the way. Don't get the idea
February
I am.
the 14th. If I had to say, oh, that's going to be a day, to me, I have to say, it's not a day I look forward to, ever. And I'll tell you for why. That was the day I had my heart attack.
Yeah.
And I ended up in hospital, and it was all very
Tubes
tense.
in and out. And
you know, quite frankly, it's not a day that I would choose to remember. So for me, I prefer my February the 14th to be a day-by-day, courtship never ends, ongoing thing, which is not just dependent on a bunch of flowers on one particular day. That is my thing. Because that day, to me, is not a fun day to remember.
However, I wouldn't want to take away that special something that maybe some of you feel that is a good thing, like to get flowers or, you know.
Make a big deal.
Yeah, make a big deal out of it. I think it's charming. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing. And listen, I know it's unspectacular to do this day-by-day approach.
Yeah.
But day by day, life in the trenches, that's where the battles are won or lost. Yeah. That's where love is cultivated or inhibited. That's where respect is earned or shunned.
Well, it's in those places that if one or other is going to get fed up and say, you know, I've had enough, I'm leaving, that's where it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's in the trenches.
It's in the trenches. It's the little things that matter. And when we do little things, I remember not so very long ago, we had a massive argument. Huge argument.
I'm sure it was your fault.
Probably.
No, I'm joking. Yeah?
Well, I mean, I always got blamed for everything, so whatever.
Oh, I did it. I didn't do that right. Guys, pay attention. I didn't do that right. Go, tell us about it.
But the fact is, like Abigail, I took a page out of her book, and I didn't think about what he had said or done, whether it was right or wrong, because God is my vindicator.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I got that one.
But what I did was I wanted to take the tension out of the situation. So I did something to please him, something little.
Yeah.
I picked up his pile of books that he likes to read at night, and I put them on his bed.
She never does that usually. That's
So that he had something that he didn't have to do when it was time to go to bed, and he had his little thing that he likes to do and read all his books. So I just picked them up off the floor and put them where he could reach them. And that little act of kindness changed the tone of the
Yeah, it
evening.
did. I was still kind of gruff and a little bit, because we were in an argument. You know how you are. But I noticed that. And that made a big impact on me, that she thought enough just to put my books on the bed, so when I get out of my shower, I got my head on the pillow and I'm reading my books. You see those little things? That's what it is, that little things. The little things say that I love you.
Yeah.
And if I don't have the I love you in the little things, well, they're often not there in the big things, I have to say it. So happy Valentine's Day. Please do something wonderful for your
Have fun together today.
yeah, have some fun today. Do something silly. Go, I don't know.
Go sledding.
Yeah, do a
Up
boat
here,
ride
there's plenty of
somewhere.
snow, so we will go sledding.
Yeah.
Fun falling on my butt.
Okay. Anyway, God bless all of you and have a happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
day.
God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.
Bye now.
Well, thank you so much. Wasn't that great? And I love those guys, and we're just so glad and honoured that they are part of our family up there in Scotland. They come with a wealth of life experience, as well as the call of God on them, which you can see, and they bring a heart of love, and they certainly put Jesus first, and I just love that. So thanks so much, and a lot of good tips. I wanted to let you know, and they have no idea I'm doing this, but I just wanted to show you these couple of things that they have written together, really. This is called If You Love Me, and a bit of reflection, but If You Love Me, Show Me. So that was about 2014, and that's a book about marriage, steps to a victorious marriage in modern society. If you contact Larry or Judy, they will tell you the best way to get a copy of that. And I would really encourage you, we live in a world that is pretty confused with relationships. There's a lot of hurt out there, and there's a lot of reactionism. And you can tell that sometimes what that has done, actually, it's in the name of independence and freedom and my rights, but it actually destroys relationships. Real love begins when you serve one another and when you lay down your life for somebody else's benefit instead of insisting on your own way. That is not just old school. That is not just traditional family values. That's biblical. And it will help you enormously. But in this world, for a lot of you that are watching us today, that'll be kind of news, and certainly how to put it into practice will be news. Now, if you're raising kids, this is a second book called If You Love Me, Tend My Lambs, Raising Children in Christ in a Me First World. So Larry and Judy are what I'd like to call unapologetically Christian in their perspective and their teaching, and they will really help you to get a grip on those areas. So thank you both very much for you taking the time to share with us today. And let Larry get in touch with Larry. If you get in touch with me, if you don't have his number, I will send that on to you, onto them, so that you can be in touch with them. We trust them, and we're thankful for them. So, everybody else, great day in the house of God. We're going to have a Zoom cafe in about 5 minutes or so.
Yep.
If you don't have the link, it'll be on the Greater Life Church family app, WhatsApp group. Some people are in that, some people are not, and we don't pressure people. So if you want to be invited, please let us know. Send us a text and say, hey, send me the link. No pressure, but it's always, nice to chat with people a little bit. And the final thing is, what are we going to end with? We're going to end with the ads, with the news desk. And Tammy's news desk breakthrough. She great reviews. She actually is good at all those kinds of things. And so we're going to end with that. And then in 5 minutes or less, grab your coffee and we'll see you at the cafe. God bless you. Have a great week.
Bye.
Good morning. Welcome to the GRC News Desk with your host, Temi. First up on our agenda today, breaking story. This week is going to be half term. This week is half term, and this Thursday at 6:30 we will finally, once again, we're going to be having a quiz, you guys, and it's going to be hosted by the one, the only, Pastor Paul. We're going to try and even the odds because Lucille's been winning one too many times. So be prepared with your music and your movie knowledge as well as your Bible knowledge. Who knows who the new winner could be? Next up, as usual, we have prayer Monday and Friday with Go Deeper on Wednesdays. If you need any more information, please make sure that you get in contact with Karen. Her number will be displayed here. And next up, this just in. We're going to be getting a new seminar. Saturday, 6th of March, we'll be having another seminar. Angels and Demons, the Essential Christian Guide. Be there or be square. If you're a new Christian or you're a seasoned Christian, then this is the seminar for you. It's going to be really informative and really practical. It is going to be free, but we would really love if you could donate if it's in your heart to do so. We do suggest £10 per person. Finally, the biggest news that there is, it's the birthdays! More importantly, it was my birthday yesterday, so if you didn't get me a present, don't worry, I'm absolutely fine. You can still send me one. We have two very special birthdays coming up this Tuesday on the 16th of February. We have both Damini and Larry's birthday. Everybody say, happy birthday! You're not saying it loud enough. And most of all, on this magical day, we're getting a weather report that there has been a Cupid sighting, shooting some of his bow and arrows out to all you lovebirds out there. Have a happy Valentine's Day. That's all from us here at the GRC News Desk. This is Temi, coming at you live. Morning, church.